Hello, and welcome to The Void, where I speak and probably nobody listens. This week we're going to talk about motivation versus discipline and the activation of new habits and how we can manipulate the two things to get what we want, right? So we're going to get straight into it. And to start with, we're going to talk about the difference between the two. So, motivation. What is motivation? Motivation is like you wake up one morning, right? And you look in the mirror and maybe you don't like what you see. Or you are on the train and you see somebody reading a book and you're like, oh, that's cool. Or maybe you're like listening to some music and it's like there's a really cool guitar bit and you think, oh, I would love to play the guitar. And for anywhere between half an hour and maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, if you're lucky, maybe even a month. I don't know what the science is. And I don't know the science on any of this, but you will feel this impetus to do this thing, right? So for the next however long this feeling lasts, you'll want to do it. You'll want to do this thing. You'll be like, okay, I'm going to learn the guitar. I'm going to figure out how to play the guitar. I'm going to watch some YouTube videos on how to start learning the guitar. I'm going to buy books and I'm going to practice for X amount of time a day. And however long that is, and we'll talk about some of the pitfalls and stuff like that of practice and stuff like that later on. But it's the feeling of wanting to do something, right? It's the feeling of, I'm going to do this. Inspiration, It's that spark that makes you go, yes, I'm going to do that. That's cool. I want to do it. And it's a useful feeling, right? I feel like a lot of what is being spoken about in the podcasty YouTube area sort of poo-poos on motivation, but I think that it's an integral part of getting what you want. If you want to do something, if you want to start a new thing, I think that it's actually a really important part, and if it's utilized correctly, you can get some fantastic results, right? The only caveat to that is that it's unreliable. You can't rely on feeling motivated. You can't rely on that feeling always being there. And that's where the problem lies with motivation. Conversely, if we talk about and think about discipline and what that is, discipline is a repeated action. It's a conscious decision to continue to do something and to not allow yourself the space to give up, right? A lot of what people say is you can, if you have a habit or you're doing something, if you miss one, that's okay, but if you miss two, then you're building up a new habit. And I think that both of these things, motivation plus discipline equals habit. That's my thing. So discipline is extremely useful because it makes you reliable, and people talk about discipline as a thing that you acquire, and I heavily subscribe to that. Of anybody in this world can be disciplined. There's no gate to being disciplined. There's no this person has this, so they're disciplined and they do this and that. But it's I think that we can be disciplined and undisciplined in various places in our lives, right? If I have a schedule for when I go to the gym, and now because I'm quite disciplined with myself, there is a habit in place where if I get up on specific days of the week and I don't go to the gym, my whole day feels strange, right? But then there's other stuff like what? Reading. I love reading, but I don't do it all the time. There's no strict schedule. I'm so sporadic with that. Playing games, so sporadic. Sometimes I'll just want to. And I think that it's okay to rely on motivation and just, feeling like you want to do something sometimes and not be disciplined with it. I think that if you can train yourself in how to be disciplined and how to get yourself, out of bed every morning and doing the thing that you want to do, then you'll go far. But if you sort of leave it, then it's easy to slip into like a sporadic habit, right? And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, let's say, for the sake of this video, we're trying to generate a new habit, right? So we've said that motivation is unreliable because you can't rely on it being there, on this constant want to do something, especially if it's like something physical or even something that's like particularly mentally draining. It's going to be tough for you to be able to rely on your body to wake up and want to do that thing, right? Your body kind of wants to take the path of least resistance. So like if you're like getting into like kickboxing and you're going like 4 times a week and there's a couple of days in a row where you're supposed to go, you're gonna wake up aching that next day and you're gonna be like, I don't want to do it. And it's like how like you can't rely on wanting to do it, on the motivation. You have to find another way to do it. So it's I think, swinging it back around, that it's the combination of the two, right? And I have a pretty good anecdote from being younger, and this is like several times, and what I'm about to tell you about is just me gushing about my parents, but I think it sort of illustrates the point quite well. So when I was a kid, and even still now, I think I'm what people would call a serial hobbyist, in that I love getting into something. But only to the point that I prove that I could do it, right? It's a really, actually quite toxic habit, in that, like, let's say I got into poker once, right? Really got into poker, and I wasn't really betting much money. I never went on to like Poker Stars or anything like that, but like I was on tour with a show like back in like 2016, 17, and there was a group of us that liked playing poker, and I'd never played before, but I was like, I want to be part of this social event, so I'm going to learn how to play. So I learned and I taught myself how to play, and I got to the point where I could play a game of poker pretty well, and like I knew how to play the game and how to play the odds, and then just completely lost interest, because in my head I ticked off like, no, you can do that. You could totally do that if you wanted to do it. And that's kind of like the cycle. That's my cycle of like, yeah, once I know that I can do it, I'm quite happy to not do it, usually. So like I have lots of things that I'm kind of semi okay at. Card tricks is like another thing, like shuffling tricks. I have like a few that I'm like, whoa, amazing at. And then I just sort of proved to myself that I was like, you could probably become a magician if you wanted to, so you don't need to do that anymore. Yeah, there's loads of stuff like that. But to swing that back around, I think my parents like clocked it. I think my parents like knew. I think they sort of got to a point one day and they were like, Ash is good at starting things but not finishing them. And for those of you that are into astrology, I think I'm an Aries, and I think I don't know, I don't really check, but I think that's like a classic Aries thing of like, great to start things, you never finish them. So yeah, that's an interesting tidbit about me. So my parents had clocked it, and they I don't think they were too happy with it. So they would pull me up on stuff. I have this really specific memory of being like 10 years old. Maybe I was 9, I can't remember. But I would be writing a Christmas list. And I have this thing about even numbers. And I'd managed to get 9 things together, right? That I was like, oh, I really want those things. It was stupid stuff like Beyblades and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff. But stuff that was sick at the time. Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh used to slap. Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh used to slap. You can't tell me any different. Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon were the holy trinity of any late 90s, early 90s babies. The absolute holy trinity. for any child growing up between like 1993 and 2003. Like they were, you loved it. Anyway, so I'm sat here writing my Christmas list, and I'm thinking, oh, for God's sake, I can't have 9. It's got to be 10. So I'm thinking, oh, what's something stupid that they won't buy me? They won't buy me. So I write it down. I'd written down electric guitar. And Christmas morning comes. And like I'd written this list months before. My mum was quite strict with it. She was like, listen, Ash, it's October. You need to write your Christmas list. Because we've got to go to White Rose before it gets too busy. All right? Because I'm not going on Christmas Eve when it's chock-a-block. So I'd written it months before, and I'd completely forgotten that I'd asked for this electric guitar. So Christmas Day comes, I go downstairs, it's like 7 a.m, couldn't sleep, could I? Loved Christmas, used to love Christmas. I still love Christmas, but it's not the same, is it? Go downstairs, it's this huge box. And I've been joking all morning. I was like, Jermaine. My brother's called Jermaine. I was like, Jermaine, you've got a mattress for Christmas, lol, 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 lol. He was like, shut up, oh, shut up. He's like 6 years older than me. I love teasing him. He gets so angry. I was just like, mattress. He was like, oh, shut up. So we get to like present opening time, and like we couldn't open it until quite late because my mum used to work at a residential home. She was a manager, and she would have to go in and like make sure that everything was okay on Christmas Day because there was obviously people working. I think it was like a decent like morale boost, and I think as like a manager, it's good to turn up on days like that so that you know your employees are going, oh well, you know, she took the time to turn up. Do you know what I mean? She's taking time out of her Christmas, so it feels less bad that we are. So she wouldn't get home sometimes till like 2-3 p.m. So like this one Christmas we had to like eat it. We had to eat the Christmas dinner before we opened presents, and that was a nightmare when you're 10 years old, right? There was no social media at that point, so it wasn't a problem. Like I wasn't seeing what everybody else was getting, but in my head I'm like, oh God, Jake's probably opened his presents. Jake was my best friend at the time. Jake's probably opened his presents. I bet he's got something really cool. Can't wait for him to tell me about that. I don't know what I've got yet. So we sit down, we have dinner, and it's delicious. My dad cooks a mean Christmas dinner. But actually, I think my mum cooked it. I think she used to prep it the day before. My dad would do like some of the veg, and then my mum would come home and like finish off what she'd started. So we get to the opening stage, right? We're sat down. I'm thinking, whose is the mattress? It's mine. Open it up, it's an electric guitar. And like this anecdote probably took too long because you all knew it was an electric guitar. So they pulled me up on it. They were like, they'd seen it. Obviously, they'd seen on the list a bunch of useless shit. Like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, where's that going to get him? Pokemon, where's that going to get him? Beyblade, dangerous. And they did get me some of that stuff. But they got me this electric guitar, and they were like, they said, you're having lessons. I opened it up, and I was like, what? Like I was like kind of pretending to be excited. I was excited, but I was like, oh, you know when you realize the mistake that you've made. So I opened it up. I'm gassed. I'm boom, 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 you know, playing Smoke on the Water, boom, 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 loving my absolute life playing this new guitar. And they were like, we've got your lessons. You go in every Friday to this lad called Stuart around the corner. Anyway, so they made me go because they knew that I would quit, right? And in my head, it just built up that thing of like, well, no, every Friday I have to go. I have to go. You have to pick up your guitar and walk around to that guitar shop to do your group lesson. And I did it for, I was 18 when I left home. So like, yeah, 8 years. 8 years, guitar lesson every week. I'd switched guitar teachers a couple of times, and I think at a certain point when it was like exam season, we took it down to every fortnight. But every week I would go, and like it was a similar thing with swimming. So I used to be a competitive swimmer back when I was a kid, and I remember being about 8, and like my mum and dad were like, Ash, do you like swimming? And I go, yeah, love it. Obviously, because they're paying for me to go swimming. I'd done my swimming lessons, I'd done my honours and stuff. So I'm a pretty sick swimmer by like general standards, even before I started going to swimming club. Anyway, my mum and dad were eager to keep me off the streets, and if I signed up to this swimming club, it would get me out of the house for at least 3 nights of the week. Right, it would like put me somewhere that I could not be meeting my friends, and I was like, I think I was like 8 or 9 at this point. So obviously, my mum and dad were like, "We're building good habits when he's 9." They'd had like a conversation, and so I started going to this thing. They were like, "Do you like swimming?" I was like, "Yeah," and they took that as he wants to do it every day of the week. And it was the single best decision they ever made. Because I would have been the laziest guy if I hadn't done it. What it did was it forced me to know what my homework has to be done before this time, otherwise I'm not going to get it done. And if I got a negative comment in my planner and came home, honestly, all hell would break loose. I never had a detention the whole time. If you ask anybody that knows me now, they'll be like, he is so cheeky, he is so naughty. Not at school. Because it was trackable. It was traceable. If I did stuff wrong, my mum's going to find out because she has to sign my planner. And my handwriting's not good enough to forge her signature. And they knew that they had to sign it every Friday. So I was very well behaved. So that it forced me to know, like, my stuff has to be done because I have to be at the swimming pool by 7:15 so that I can swim for an hour and a half. And it progressively got more and more and more. Like, as I got like better as a swimmer, I would move up groups and stuff. And by the end, it was like 9, maybe 10 a week. It would be Monday morning, Monday evening, Tuesday morning, Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, Thursday evening, Friday evening, nothing on Saturday, then Sunday. That's 9 sessions a week. I'm like, this is between the ages of like, I'd say 14, maybe 13 and 16 that I was doing this. Perfect. So this is between the ages of like 14 and 16, 9 times a week. It's mornings, it's evenings. I had to have my stuff done. And I had to have my alarm set to wake up the next morning. And obviously my parents were there and, they were keeping me motivated. But it sort of instilled in me this sense of like, once you've agreed to something, you have to do it, right? And this is what I mean about discipline is like, initially, I was motivated to do these things. I've just got a spanking new guitar. Of course, I'm going to bow on it. But without the discipline of having the lesson to go to and saying, well, he's given me X thing to practice, so I have to practice that. Beyond that, I would have quit like 3 weeks in. Same with swimming. I enjoyed swimming. Did I love swimming? No. Did I want to go swimming 9 times a week? No. But it was something that I'd committed myself to. And that's what I mean, is like the combination of the two. So if you can take your motivation, like let's say that, like I'll use an example recently. I woke up one morning and I was like, Ash, you look terrible, fam. You look terrible. Nobody is going to want to be with you if you look like this. And I don't think that's actually true. But I decided that I wanted to start looking better. And to build that habit, I knew that I am capable of discipline because of examples previously. And I knew that I had X amount of motivation. And the trick to it was that I needed to not burn myself out quickly. I needed to ride the motivation wave as much as I could, but to a healthy standard, right? So I was like, well, if I say 3 mornings a week, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do some resistance training and a little bit of cardio, right? And then I was already cooking my meals and I was like, oh, well, I'll just track the calories as well. Why not? And when I tell you, I've lost 3 stone in the past 3 months, 4 months, 4.5 maybe. No, it's actually, I think it's pretty much 4 months on the dot. 3 stone in that amount of time. It's pretty good. And it was because I wasn't overcommitting. I wasn't saying every day. I was saying, no, manageable. 3 times a week. It's going to make a difference, especially when you're like just starting out. Your body is ready to change, right? You haven't hit the plateau. It was not much. And by the time that I had gotten to the point where I was like, oh, can't be bothered to go to the gym, I was at a point where I was like, no, you're seeing results. You've made this commitment. Go to the gym. And it was a combination of riding the motivation wave and then utilizing your discipline to keep doing the thing that got me to a place where it was like, well, now I'm seeing some serious results, right? That is what I would like you to take away from this. Motivation plus discipline equals result. You have to think tactically about what it is that's going next. What are you going to do to get there? Have a plan. Don't overplan and don't overcommit yourself, because burning out on something is so normal. Because it's like you see these like gym like workout classes places. There's this famous one, this Bikram yoga one in London, that's like you pay X amount of money and you can go as many times as you want in 30 days. And you go, and like I did it once with my friend. I was like, oh, we're going to be so skinny, we're going to sweat it out. And we went a fair amount. But by the end of it, because I was going so sporadically and because I'd gone so much, I'd lost all motivation, because I was like, oh God, I couldn't do that. And there was no routine being built for me to utilize the discipline of like, no, I go to yoga on this day. So that's my take on it. It's not a super long take. It's not a super short take. I can see the time ticking up. But remember this: motivation plus discipline equals result. Whatever it is you want to do, if it's, I want to get better at cooking, cook a few times a week. Simple as that. Get yourself some ingredients, decide what you're going to cook, and say, on these days, I'm going to come home from work and I'm going to cook. And look up chopping skills. Look up how you chop stuff. Look up how best, what temperature stuff needs to be at. Look up like how to tell whether or not your pan is non-stick right now. Like, do it. Use the motivation, but then you need to be able to transition that into, no, this is just what I do on this day. Use the motivation to create the habit, and then use your discipline to keep the habit going. And the longer you keep it going, the easier it's going to be to keep going. If you think about the laziest thing you do that you love doing, right? Like if you're like, oh, love going for a curry on a Thursday night, I bet you wouldn't miss that curry for the world. And if you do miss that curry for the world, you're missing it to go and have something else to eat, right? Your body has decided that is cheat day. What if you reversed that? People think like because of the dopamine hit that comes from like doing stuff like eating sweets and stuff like that, and eating food that's like tastes delicious, and like obviously food can still taste delicious and be healthy, but because of that, people think that it's so easy to build like these negative habits like smoking and stuff like that. Addictive substance, completely different, but like it's so easy to build those habits. It's just as easy to build the healthy ones if you approach it right. It'll be a couple of weeks of conscious thought, and then it will just be, okay, what time do I need to set my alarm to go to the gym? Okay, what am I cooking this week? Let me order my food shop. Okay, I'm going to do an hour a day of electric guitar. And you'll just pick up the guitar by week 4. You're just picking it up. This is when I do this. Great. My guitar's over there. I should have gone and picked it up. But yeah. Motivation plus discipline equals result. I'm Ashley. This has been The Void. Likely no one's listened, but this is for me anyway, just to remind myself. I hope you'll have a great day, a great week, a great month, a great minute. I'll catch you in the next one.